Um, so welcome back, guys. I'm sorry for not recording in a while. Uh, I had a few issues pop up, so I had a 50-minute recording 2 weeks ago, I believe it was, and that was on a Wednesday as well. And what happened was my browser, which is Chrome, kept crashing, and it annoyed the hell out of me. And I had a 50-minute recording, and I couldn't upload that to YouTube. So I got so pissed I freaking deleted it. And I thought like 50 minutes was too much, and that was about like Michael Hudson's transcript about recording. So financial capitalism versus industrial socialism. So basically, the U.S. versus China, and it was a transcript for like a interview he had on that topic. And unfortunately, I might cover it in a future video. I have that page bookmarked, um, provided it doesn't get taken off the internet. But I'll probably make a much shorter recording in the future about that. So anyhow, this what we'll be covering today is what will happen when China becomes a post-industrial economy. So a lot of people have been saying, well, I won't say a lot of people, but among like I guess intellectual circles or those who are concerned with China's economy, they think that China will become a post-industrial economy. And today we're going to see why that is actually well not going to happen, and I'll be explaining why it won't happen. And in this answer here, in this core answer, we'll see why uh, it's actually a bad thing. So if uh, China's economy does become a post in industrial economy, then that means their leaders have failed, basically. So let's go through what it says here. Answer from George Tate Edwards. He's been uh, he's been in the high growth economics field for 49 years. I've only been in it for 2 years, so yeah, he's in it. He's like the big guy in that area. And his mentor was Richard Werner, one of the world's greatest economists. Uh, so yeah, let's begin. There is no such thing as a successful post-industrial economy. That's facts. Any post-industrial economy you see is actually a failure, and we'll get into why that is the case. So, manufacturing industry has the capacity, product productively to employ a high proportion of the workers in the economy, and only where there is an economy based on abundant capital investment in manufacturing has the productivity and living standards of the working class created an economic miracle. Um, so to simplify, why is manufacturing and the industry and stuff like that so important is because it employs a lot of people. It's by far the largest employer in the industrial age, and even in the post uh, industrial age, I guess you could call it. But really, as effects on neoliberalism, uh, it's by far the largest employer. Obviously, you need a lot of jobs for the economy, for a healthy economy. Uh, the working class needs jobs and stuff. They make the stuff in the economy. They're the drivers of the economy. So if you're under in economics, if you're underutilizing your workers, uh, then you're basically like shorthanding your economy. Your economy is not working at its full capacity. So that's why you want like mass employment, and the easiest way to do that is through manufacturing. And of course, manufacturing creates real goods. So you get the benefits of both. Point so discussion the economic miracle nations of the Schumernerian practice involving the MMT creation of abundant capital. So Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, and China have preserved the role of manufacturing within their economies. So this answer is quite outdated, I guess, but it's still relevant for China today. Uh, so this is the 2017 figure for GDP generated by industry. And for all four of these economies, it's pretty high. So China's at 40.5%. I believe 20, I don't have the statistics for this year, but 2021, China is probably a bit higher than that, probably 41 to 45%, but I'm not sure. I'd be very surprised if it's lower. Um, we have Japan at 30.1%. They've been going on a downward trend, so is South Korea and Taiwan. Um, with Taiwan, I'm pretty sure it's not that high anymore. I don't think. Um, I think it's been lowering over the years, so it's probably like 30% now. Same with Japan. South Korea, in that aspect, is probably stagnant, but I don't have the figures for this year, so take what I say in that regard with a grain of salt. Declining Western nations of the Washington Consensus macroeconomics have significantly lower percentages of manufacturing industries. So we have the US at almost 20%, the UK at 20%, and India at 23%. So these are basically your neoliberal economies. So there's three uh, major neoliberal economies. The US at like 21 trillion, UK at 2 trillion something, and India at like 9 trillion now because of COVID. There's been a huge hit. So all three of these economies could be a huge hit. And Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan are also neoliberal economies, but they managed to retain at least some of the industry to the modern age. Whereas these three neoliberal economies, US, UK, India, uh, they've, with the exception of the US, they've always been a neoliberal economy. And as such, they're, uh, I say all of them for the majority of their history have been neoliberal economies. So as such, they're, we'll say they're, the amount of industry they have built up over the years is not that impressive at all. Um, and then we have Germany, which is a special case. Germany, due to its public Sparkassen and banking system supporting its high tech SMEs, has about 30.7% of its output generated by industry. So Germany is an exception. I think they have been growing really slow in that regard, though. But they've been growing regardless. So Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, but Germany is the only major economy there. And so the Sparkassen banking system, like I'm no expert on in that area. I do need to read up more on it, but it's basically a local banking system. There's local banks in every local district, and their main aim is to fund industry, obviously, and uh, elevate poverty as well to the creation of jobs, basically. So here we get into the Western idea of post-industrial economy seems to have developed as an explanation or excuse for the observation that low capital investment and long growth Western economies have naturally higher percentages of services. These are more post-development than post-industrial. So basically, what we see in the service-oriented or financial capitalist West, if you want, whatever you want to call it, is a lack of productivity. Basically, they lost all the industry through I don't want to give spark. I don't want to really support this idea of other nations taking jobs from Western nations. But competition has a little bit to do with it. But it's the Western nations' own policies that resulted in them losing out to competition. So regardless of what kind of economic world system you're in, it's always gonna be competitive. So you gotta keep if you're a leader of a country, you have to keep that country always at the forefront of development. You have to be well aware of trends in the world's economic development, and you have to keep basically you have to learn the best from other countries and adopt that into your own country or economy. So the reason Western economies have such a high level of services is either because their industry has slowly died out, or they didn't have much industry to begin with, and because they've been a neoliberal economy for the vast majority of the history, sorry, they've had low capital investment, and as a result, low growth. Low capital investment includes equipment, manufacturing, industry, infrastructure, etc., like that. Uh, and because they're low growth economies, the manufacturing sector doesn't get a hold in these economies, and services will naturally be higher. And because manufacturing is not that high in these economies to begin with, they suffer from relatively high unemployment. Uh, so yeah, as the author puts, these are more post-development than post-industrial. Um, for point 4.2, throughout history, no nation has ever become a leading world economy on the basis of its services. Only leading manufacturing economies have become world leaders. So we have going to the early um, let's go like from when civilization first arose. You got the Indus Valley civilization. It was also big on manufacturing, and it was a major trading power at the time. Uh, you got the first civilizations in Western Asia. They were also big on manufacturing, hence why they had so much trade with the rest of Asia at the time. Looking at East Asia, we have China. Really, we only have China, and in South Asia, we only have India as well. Uh, so with China, we had a lot of out of all the Asian civilizations, I would say China has the most uh, preserved information, I guess you could call it. So we have a lot of information from ancient times for China. Uh, a lot of porcelain production, jade. So a lot of machinery made out of wood, which obviously wouldn't survive that well to this day. But yet you can clearly see a lot of manufacturing capacity even in the first phase of civilization that China went through. Then you have a major manufacturing explosion in the Song Dynasty, uh, which had about 50% of world GDP at the time. So that's very impressive for a pre-industrial revolution economy. Uh, and that was and the Song Dynasty China did implement credit creation, investment credit creation. It was actually investment credit creation was invented by the Song, uh, and this invention, though they didn't utilize it that well, it was mainly used for farmer loans and stuff back then. This invention basically remove the limits that economies had on funding. So we were no longer limited by funding once this was invented, because now we could invest in we could just basically we could print a lot of credit, and we wouldn't have to worry about inflation because that is backed up by real uh, production of goods, so real value. It's not just it's not like the USA, which just prints endlessly without any value backing up that dollar. Uh, so now we weren't limited by our funding um, to just taxes. We can now create extra credit to fund to really boost our growth, our development. Uh, then um, we had the Industrial Revolution happen in Europe. Uh, also on the Song Dynasty, they almost had the Industrial Revolution, but they were constantly in war with the Mongols, and they were limited by the lack of coal, really. So here in the on an island in Europe, you have a lot of coal, uh, and you have a lot of local banks, and this island was Britain. And Britain back then, so in the 1800s, I guess you could say, probably really in the 1900s. Um I think it was 1886 when they really took off. But yeah, they had I'm no expert in that one, but they had a lot of local banks which would fund uh, development of uh, industry, uh, and it was fund. Those banks were funded by the tobacco lords, and yeah, that this same author goes through that in much more detail. So if you're interested, do check out. Um, and that kind of really pushed the development of um, the steam engine and all that kind of machinery that really helped the industrial revolution uh, start like picking up pace in first in Britain and then uh, through Europe and finally the rest of the world. Um, we had the USA in the 1940s, investment credit creation. They weren't the first to use investment credit creation in the modern era, but they're the first major economy. So the Japanese in Manchuria, their colonies actually experimented with investment credit creation, and they were the first to basically reinvent investment credit creation in the modern era. I don't know whether FDR had learned from them or something, or he basically independently developed it, but the massive manufacturing growth rate during the World War II was due to investment creation. So the USA could just pretty much outproduce all of Europe combined at that time. Then we have Japan, the Asian tigers, and finally China, mostly following the same funding model, a huge boost to their development. And I believe the author will get to that here. So the 1980-84 Reaganite reallocation of what he saw as smokestack industries and its implications for the decline of the U.S. economy is a major factor in the decline of the U.S. It's one of the major factors. Manufacturing industry is not a phase to be passed through on the way to a service-dominated economy. This is a really important point, but an essential aspect of continuing high economic development because the higher investment production of better things has a higher capability for continuous invention and innovation. And commun, uh, uh, commonly higher work. I think he means commonly higher. Yeah, higher worker productivity than a slower improvement services based manpower intensive economy. The living standards of countries' domestic workers depend on a flourishing manufacturing economy. This is true in the past economic development events of Wang and Qi's 11th century China, so that's Song Dynasty. This in the Yongle emperors, this is the Ming. I didn't mention that. Reign within the 15th century Ming Dynasty China in Scotland's economic miracle, 1695 to 1880. I really don't know much about that. In the Industrial English Revolution, 1750 to 1880. In FDR's economic miracle, 1938-44, in post-World War II Japan's economic miracle, South Korea 1960-1980, and in China 1975 to today. Industrial development is a key to working class prosperity, and the industrial decline, the consequences of natural economic decline. That's what he focuses on. And China will never become a post-industrial economy, but will become a world-leading made in China 2025 manufacturing and excellent services economy based upon the computer-dominated fourth next natural phase of industrial development. So this is already happening. This post was made in 2017, so it's been some time. But yeah, so for the Made in China 2025 program, they're going ahead of schedule due to the trade war and other recent events. That's good to see. And yeah, China will never become a post-industrial economy. That would happen if China's leaders become incredibly incompetent, which is pretty hard to see, or if it becomes a neoliberal economy, which is also pretty hard to see. That'll be a result of really incompetent government as well. So I'll see you next time. The next video will be about China becoming a green superpower. It was my first time reading that article, so yeah, I'll see you guys there.